Ethan, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position. My boss stated, his tone devoid of any warmth. By the end of the day, ensure that your desk is cleared out. My name is Ethan Wilson. At 54 years old, I held the position of Senior Systems Analyst at Meridian Technologies in Columbus, Ohio, until that fateful Monday morning. For nearly 20 years, I had stood as the cornerstone of the IT department, witnessing the evolution from dial-up connections to the era of cloud migration. 3 CEOs had come and gone, yet I remained steadfast, training each new hire, recovering every lost file, and dedicating my weekends and holidays to the cause, all without seeking a promotion or a word of appreciation. As I stepped into Scott's office with Lauren from HR already perched in her chair, an unsettling certainty washed over me before he even uttered a word. The air had shifted weeks prior. I fully grasped the situation, I replied, giving a single nod. I stepped outside, silence enveloping me as I left without uttering a single word. Neither anger nor pleading filled the air, simply a silent recognition. Returning to my desk, I noticed the younger employees casting furtive glances in my direction, only to swiftly divert their eyes back to their screens. Word spreads quickly. Many of them were coders I had personally trained. The kids were good, yet they remained blissfully unaware of the intricate workings embedded within our systems or the complexities of the older architecture that lay beneath the surface. None of them were able to find their way through the custom software I had crafted, nor could they uncover the admin credentials hidden 3 layers deep within each system. With a sense of purpose, I started to gather my belongings, each item carefully chosen and placed in its designated spot. A cherished moment captured in a family photo, a coffee mug crafted by my son during his high school years. In a corner of the room, a small cactus stood resilient, having endured 17 years beneath the harsh glow of fluorescent lighting. Rachel from marketing appeared, her expression etched with worry.
Ethan, I just caught wind of it. This situation is utterly absurd. This place is practically your creation.
I simply shrugged my shoulders. Companies often shift their course, yet without a hint of forewarning. After all that you've accomplished, her voice climbed higher, capturing the attention of those around her. It's fine, I murmured softly. Is that so? It was far from fine, yet I had no intention of causing a stir. Just as I was about to leave, Scott emerged from his office, his gaze following me as I walked away. There was neither a farewell nor a clasp of hands, only monitoring to confirm that I truly departed. What they had all overlooked throughout the years was that I had emerged as the most pivotal figure in the entire building. It wasn't due to any extraordinary talent I possessed, but rather my unwavering attention to detail. I meticulously recorded every detail. Years ago, secure audit protocols were established to monitor unauthorized access, following a request from the legal team in light of a previous scandal. Copies were also in my possession. In my car, I lingered for a moment, gazing back at the towering 12-story building that had been the backdrop of my adult life. The security badge I had just relinquished bore the marks of renewal a total of 16 times. With a turn of the key, the engine roared to life, and I set off on the journey home. Little did they know, Wednesday held the promise of unexpected enjoyment. I had been with Meridian since its humble beginnings, when it occupied merely 2 floors in a business park. The journey began when my daughter Chloe was just a kindergartner. At this moment, she found herself nearing the end of her journey through grad school. As the company flourished, so too did I, evolving alongside its journey. I turned down offers from competitors, for loyalty held greater significance in my heart. My wife Emily often teased that the servers were like my second family. She was not completely mistaken. I was intimately familiar with each system, every workaround, and all the hidden solutions to issues that the executives were blissfully unaware of. The infrastructure I had constructed endured through 3 acquisitions and a myriad of innovations that management initially embraced, only to cast aside mere months later. 5 years ago, Scott stepped into the role of my boss. A young MBA type referred to our department as IT resources rather than acknowledging us as people. He envisioned a world of streamlining and efficiency where digital transformation reigned supreme, buzzwords that often hinted at the art of achieving more with less. Initially, I endeavored to guide him through the intricacies of our systems, the layers of complexity that had accumulated over years of evolution and adjustment. In meetings, he'd assert his gaze drifting beyond me. We must future-proof. Half a year prior, he enlisted the expertise of a consultant by the name of Brandon Phillips, a tailored suit that speaks of luxury, a handshake that conveys confidence, and a Stanford degree showcased with pride on his LinkedIn profile. They would gather in the conference rooms, their voices dropping to hushed tones as I passed by. 3 months ago, I began to observe subtle changes in my access permissions. There were no glaring issues, merely subtle adjustments to the administrative controls. I might have raised my voice in dissent, yet I chose to observe, to record the unfolding events. "You seem distracted lately," Emily remarked one evening as we lounged on the porch. "Is all well at work?" I took a sip of my beer and nodded thoughtfully. Only changes, familiar territory for me. Yet these changes carried a distinct weight. In the midst of discussions, I found myself increasingly pushed to the periphery. It seemed that the emails regarding system upgrades had ceased to include my name. Projects that I would typically manage were entrusted to younger team members. It was then that I stumbled upon a company-wide memo detailing modernization initiatives that had somehow eluded my grasp. The plan detailed a thorough overhaul of the IT department, now guided by the new leader, Brandon Phillips. My role didn't even exist on the organizational chart. On that very day, I stumbled upon yet another revelation. As I conducted a routine security scan, one of those background tasks that had long been neglected by others, I stumbled upon some unusual patterns in our financial software. Frequent transactions to a vendor that was unfamiliar to me, Apex Solutions Group. A brief investigation revealed that it had been registered only the previous year, with a business address that pointed to a UPS store. Initially, the authorized payments began modestly, yet they steadily increased with each passing month. Without uttering a word, I simply observed, made a note of it, copied the records, and kept my gaze fixed on the unfolding scene. In the stillness of the room, the quiet man in the corner observes all his keen awareness, hidden beneath the guise of indifference, for those around him are convinced he notices nothing at all. The morning following my departure, I found myself in my home office, gazing at my personal laptop. I had not been stirred by any alarm. No commute was necessary. Only silence lingered heavy with the gravity of what had transpired. Without uttering a single word, Emily set the coffee down beside me, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. After 19 years of marriage, she understood when I required some distance. Eventually, she said, "I'm going to the store." "Is there anything you require?" I shook my head in disbelief. Once she departed, I carefully unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and retrieved a flash drive. One among the many I safeguarded. The company policy was clear: removing data was strictly prohibited. Years ago, when the legal team sought an audit system to monitor potential insider threats, I had made it clear that off-site backups were essential. They had given their approval only to swiftly let it slip from their minds. With a swift motion, I connected the device and started to sift through the files laid before me. Correspondence exchanged within the organization. Minutes from a meeting that were never meant for my eyes. Financial records that are hidden from the eyes of ordinary employees. There it stood, a presence unmistakable, a comprehensive account of all transactions made to Apex Solutions Group. Close to $1.8 million accumulated over a span of 18 months. The path of approval wound its way straight to our CFO, Mark Wilcox. As I delved further into the details, meticulously cross-referencing dates and figures, a pattern began to take shape before my eyes. The payments coincided seamlessly with a sequence of software license renewals for the systems utilized throughout the company. However, the figures were exaggerated. At times, it can be as much as 15%. At times, it can be as much as 20%, subtle enough to avoid drawing attention, ample in size to accumulate. I accessed the business registration for Apex Solutions Group. Kevin Wilcox was the listed owner. A swift exploration of social media validated my suspicions. The brother-in-law of Mark. They engaged in siphoning company funds by inflating legitimate expenses with fabricated markups. I reclined in my chair, sensing a subtle change within me.
Not quite anger, you see, a chillier sensation, increased concentration.
For 17 years I had been the one to unravel complexities, mend the intricate webs of systems, and safeguard the precious realm of data. I had always been the dependable one. A constant figure, always calm, never stirring the waters. They cast me aside, much like obsolete technology no longer deemed useful. As I sat there, my phone vibrated, signaling a message from Tyler, the junior analyst I had guided through the complexities of the past 2 years. I apologize for what happened yesterday. What they did is utterly ridiculous. Phillips has already begun the transition into your former office space. I placed the phone aside, choosing silence over a reply. Everything aligns perfectly now. Before anyone could piece together the truth of their scheme, Scott and the CFO conspired to ensure my departure. Perhaps they believed that the evidence would vanish along with my presence. I was merely an aging tech guy lost in the complexities of modern finance. As I sat down at my desk, I opened my email, the familiar interface glowing before me, and started to craft a message intended for the board of directors. Then came to a halt, finger poised delicately above the send button. Excessively straightforward, it's all too simple to brush aside as the resentful claims of a terminated worker. Leverage was what I sought.
Exactness, a method to unveil the deceit that demanded attention and could not be concealed. With a decisive click, I erased the draft and set about crafting new plans.
Tomorrow would be Wednesday. The day of the board meeting has arrived. The quarterly financials shall be unveiled. Approval for bonuses would be granted, just the right moment. I shut the laptop and made my way to the living room window, gazing out at the neighborhood where we had nurtured our children and crafted our life together. At last, after a long stretch since yesterday, a smile graced my lips. On a Wednesday morning, I found myself in my car, parked across the street from Meridian's headquarters, observing as employees flowed through the revolving doors. In the passenger seat rested my laptop, its screen aglow, with an email account I had established long ago for the purpose of security testing, a message that seemed to originate from an internal company domain, yet remained unrecorded in the primary directory. At precisely 9:15 a.m. I made my initial move. An email addressed to Scott bearing the subject line, "Financial Irregularities Urgent Review Needed," accompanied by a succinct summary of my findings concerning the Apex payments. I wove in just the right amount of detail to lend credibility while skillfully omitting the brother-in-law connection. Should Scott find himself in the mix, a wave of panic would surely wash over him. If he were not, he would delve into the matter. In any case, there would be a lesson to uncover. At precisely 9:45, the sound of my phone ringing broke the stillness. Scott's number. I allowed it to slip into voicemail. His message was brief and to the point. "Ethan, we must have a conversation about your email right away. Please return my call." I did not. Instead, I made my way to a coffee shop, unfolded my laptop, and settled in anticipation, hanging in the air. At 10:30, yet another email materialized. This message comes from Lauren in HR. "Dear Mr. Wilson, we find ourselves in receipt of a troubling message from you that may be in breach of your separation agreement. Kindly discontinue any communication with employees of Meridian and keep in mind your obligations regarding confidentiality. Should there be any additional communications, it may lead to legal proceedings." Thus the game unfolded before them. Intimidate, disregard, seclude. I had not put my name on any separation agreement. As the clock struck noon, I made my way to the bank where I would unlock the secrets held within my safe deposit box. Within lay yet another backup. Though older, it contained vital information that I had overlooked in my usual drives. Within the files lay the original security protocols I had crafted, complete with documentation detailing who possessed access to which systems and the timeline of changes made. These records reveal that Mark Wilcox had made a personal request for expanded access to the financial approval systems 18 months prior, coinciding with the onset of the Apex payments. Upon returning home, I discovered 3 additional missed calls waiting for me. Scott Lauren, and now Brandon Phillips, emerge in the unfolding tale. To my surprise, he became involved sooner than I had anticipated. Fascinating. Upon glancing at my personal email, I discovered an urgent message from Tyler, awaiting my attention. "Ethan, it seems there's talk about an outrageous email you sent regarding financial fraud." In a moment of urgency, Phillips summoned an emergency meeting. All around, the chatter is alive. They are restricting your access to all resources, including the historical information essential for us to perform our duties. What's happening? A child in distress, trapped amidst the chaos. I crafted a succinct response. "Stay out of it, Tyler. Simply observe." As the clock struck 3 p.m., the familiar sound of my home phone pierced the stillness of the afternoon, a number that had long since faded from my business dealings. I lifted the receiver yet remained silent. "Ethan, allow me to introduce myself. I am Mark Wilcox." His voice resonated with a calm assurance, each word measured and deliberate. "It's important that we discuss what's on your mind. It seems there may have been a mix-up." "Is that truly what you would name it?" I inquired. "Indeed, transition periods present their own set of challenges. Should you find yourself with inquiries regarding the company's finances, there exist appropriate avenues to pursue." "What do you think of the board?" I interjected. And so there was silence. The board should remain untroubled by the intricacies of operational matters. "How about we meet tomorrow, only you and I? Let us resolve this matter once and for all." "Apologies, but I have prior commitments tomorrow," I replied. "Moreover, I believe the board could genuinely find Apex Solutions Group quite intriguing. And your brother-in-law too." The sudden gasp revealed it all. At last, he spoke, his voice heavy with conviction. "You're making a serious mistake," he declared. "We have the ability to set this straight. A generous severance package awaits. Sources, whatever you require." "Goodbye, Mark," I said, and then I hung up. In just a mere span of 10 minutes, Lauren found herself compelled to send another email. In an unexpected turn of events, my severance package had unexpectedly doubled, accompanied by an agreement that mandated my absolute confidentiality concerning all company affairs. They found themselves in a frantic rush, yet they remained convinced that they were facing nothing more than a straightforward extortion attempt. Unbeknownst to them, a storm was brewing on the horizon. As Thursday morning dawned, it unveiled a sense of clarity and affirmation. Throughout the night, I immersed myself in a labyrinth of data, piecing together connections that had eluded my grasp before. Mark had embarked on creative accounting ventures before the Apex scheme. 3 years ago, just after he took on the role of CFO, a new pattern began to unfold. Fees for consulting services provided by a firm known as Lakeside Business Solutions. A new name, yet the game remains unchanged. Invoices bloated for services that were only partially provided or not delivered at all. I followed the path to the registration for Lakeside. This path brought us to Jennifer Wilcox, the wife of Mark. She was, it seemed, the CEO of a company that boasted no website, no employees, and merely a virtual office address. Yet the most significant discovery unfolded as I delved into the depths of the email archives. Scott was not merely aware of these arrangements, he had played a role in bringing them to fruition. In return, his department enjoyed budget increases while others endured cuts. He had been summoned for this very reason, as the former director had begun to probe into the details of IT expenditures. Even Brandon Phillips found himself intertwined in the web. His consulting firm found itself engaged through a rather unconventional route, one that sidestepped the usual procurement channels. His true purpose lay not in the modernization of IT, but rather in the quiet removal of the one individual who could discern the financial patterns at play. There was a certain grace in the way the scheme unfolded, a beauty found in its uncomplicated nature. Establish vendors that appear credible, authorize exaggerated payments, and divide the surplus. As genuine services were indeed being rendered, albeit at inflated prices, Auditors searching for outright fraudulent charges would likely overlook this nuance. For more than 3 years, they had funneled almost $4.3 million. I compiled all the information into a detailed report, spreadsheets illustrating the trend of growth, business registrations that connect the companies to Mark's family, correspondence revealing Scott's insights and involvement. In that moment, I took an action that caught them completely off guard. I reached out to David Chen, a board member with whom I had collaborated years earlier on a security implementation project. He found himself in a state of semi-retirement, yet he continued to make his presence felt at the quarterly meetings. "Ethan Wilson," he said, picking up on the second ring, "it has been quite a while. I heard you departed from Meridian." I responded, "Not by choice. David, I would appreciate it if you could spare me 15 minutes of your time. It holds significance." Then silence. In a corner, Mark and Scott find themselves huddled together, their expressions etched with stress, a silent testament to the weight of their shared concerns. The atmosphere in yesterday's board meeting was charged with tension. He let out a soft chuckle, perhaps in amusement. "I've always thought you had a handle on the secrets hidden beneath the surface. Where shall we convene?" After an hour had passed, we found ourselves seated in a park, a good 3 miles away from headquarters. I presented him with a sealed envelope inside, which lay a printed summary alongside a flash drive. "That's all there is," I declared. "Chronicles of time, figures, and relationships. I have no intention of seeking my job again. I have no interest in financial gain. I simply desire for the appropriate individuals to be aware." David observed me intently. "What brings you to my door?" "For the simple reason that you take the time to delve into audit reports. I have observed you during our meetings. Questions are posed by you." He nodded a slow and deliberate motion. "An emergency board session is set for tomorrow. The Finance Committee is set to conduct its review. Perfectly timed." "Ethan," he said, slipping the envelope into his pocket, "should this prove to be true, significant repercussions will follow. I'm placing my trust in it." While making my way back to the car, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. A message from Emily had just come through. "A visitor by the name of Brandon Phillips stopped by the house in search of you." It was declared urgent. "I informed him that you were not present." Desperation was creeping in. Well done. On that fateful afternoon, 2 competing firms extended their job offers to me, positions that soar well above my previous role, each presenting significant signing bonuses. Whispers of my newfound freedom had begun to circulate. For the time being, I chose to overlook them. This was not merely a quest for another job. It was a matter of completing the journey they had embarked upon. On that fateful night, armed with credentials that should have long been revoked, yet somehow remained intact. The IT transition was rather careless, Brandon. With a sense of finality, I accessed the company's email server one last time. A message was set to be delivered to each board member at the stroke of 8 a.m. on the morrow. "Before you give the green light, let's add in 2 bonuses. Take a moment to read this. Enclosed, you will find my complete report." On that Friday morning, the sky unfolded in a clear and bright embrace. As I settled onto my porch, a warm cup of coffee cradled in my hands, I observed the neighborhood slowly coming to life around me. There was no alarm clock to disrupt the peaceful morning silence. There is no commute, simply biding my time. At exactly 8 a.m., the email I had scheduled made its way to the board members carrying its important message. At precisely 8:17, the sound of my phone ringing pierced the quiet morning air. Unfamiliar numbers danced before my eyes. It seems the assistants of the board members are in a flurry trying to get in touch with me. I allowed each of their calls to slip into the quiet embrace of voicemail. As the clock struck 9 a.m., the gathering of the Emergency Finance Committee was set to commence. With my documentation in hand, David Chen would be there. Observing the responses as my email came to light and was the topic of conversation. At 9:32, a message from Stephen arrived. "The police have arrived." Wilcox and Scott found themselves under scrutiny in the confines of conference rooms. Phillips appears to be unwell. What actions did you take? I chose not to respond. The wheels were turning, just as I had foreseen. At the stroke of 10 a.m. the phone rang, and it was Meridian's general counsel on the line. In contrast to the rest, I chose to respond to this one. Mr. Wilson, it is Jennifer Graves reaching out from the legal department. Your presence is required immediately to discuss the information you have shared with the board. I responded saying that I was available by phone. An in-person discussion is truly necessary for this matter. No, it doesn't, I interjected with a sense of calm. All that I possess in terms of knowledge resides within that report. All that I possess is safely stored in various secure places. Should anything occur to me or my family, extra copies will be sent to the SEC, IRS, and 3 news organizations. Stillness, Mr. Wilson, she finally said, her voice carefully measured. The board is approaching this matter with utmost seriousness. Several executives have already been placed on administrative leave as the investigation unfolds. Your cooperation would be greatly appreciated by them. I have fully cooperated by supplying all necessary documentation. I've completed my part. Once she ended the call, I made my way to a diner situated 20 miles beyond Columbus. Today, it seems, is not a day for being easily discovered. As lunch unfolded, whispers of news started to ripple through local business sites. The executives at Meridian Technologies find themselves under scrutiny as investigations unfold regarding potential financial irregularities. No names have emerged just yet, but they would soon reveal themselves. It was precisely 2 p.m. when David Chen made the call. It's a bloodbath, he declared, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Upon our confrontation with the evidence, Mark admitted the truth. In the midst of negotiations seeking to strike an agreement, accusing Scott of applying pressure on him. Scott stands firm in his denial of all accusations. And what of Phillips? He asserts that he was merely a consultant claiming ignorance of financial affairs. The board remains unconvinced. All 3 have been suspended as we continue our investigation. Where's the money? On Monday, the forensic accountants will be arriving. Preliminary assessments indicate that a minimum of $4.5 million has been redirected over the span of 3 years, perhaps even more. I gave a small nod to myself. I had come so very close. The board wishes to have a conversation with you, David continued. Regarding the return not merely to your previous role, a new Chief Security Officer role is being established. Providing direct updates to the board, I had foreseen this possibility, yet I was still taken aback. I said I would think about it. That evening, I shared every detail with Emily. She absorbed every word, allowing silence to linger before posing her question. What is it that you wish to pursue? That's an interesting inquiry. The chapter of vengeance had drawn to a close. The very individuals who had cast me aside were now finding themselves in a similar predicament, being cast out in turn. It seems that criminal charges may be on the horizon. Justice had been delivered with a chilling precision. Yet returning to Meridian felt like stepping back into a realm that had cast me aside after 17 years of dedication. Is it possible for me to do that? Did I truly desire to? Finally, I spoke up. I need time to decide. As the night deepened, I found myself drawn to my laptop once more, and with a sense of finality, I crafted a solitary message for my otherwise quiet LinkedIn profile. Always keep the pathways open. Allow them to crumble beneath the burden of their own avarice. In just a matter of minutes, former colleagues started to connect. Whispers began to circulate. In a hushed yet commanding manner, the quiet systems guy had managed to bring down 3 executives, all without ever raising his voice. By Monday, the truth would be laid bare, and all would come to realize just whom they had underestimated. On a Monday morning, I stepped into the headquarters of Meridian, clad in a suit that had long been gathering dust in my closet. The security guard's eyes widened in surprise, and without hesitation, he swiftly printed me a visitor badge. "Welcome back, Mr. Wilson," he said, a hint of newfound respect in his voice. As the elevator ascended to the executive floor, a serene silence enveloped the space. Never before had I found a reason to venture to this level. The boardroom awaited my presence. A polished table bore witness to the gathering of 10 board members, each one poised and ready for the discussions ahead. As I stepped inside, David Chen offered a subtle nod. The interim CEO, who had once held the position of COO, appeared visibly uneasy. "Mr. Wilson," she began, "we appreciate your presence here today. The scenario you've illuminated is unprecedented." I chose to hold my tongue. She continued, revealing that the full extent of the fraud seems to be even more severe than what was initially reported. Nearly $5.2 million in diverted funds have been identified by the forensic team. Preparations are underway for the criminal charges, yet I lingered. David took a moment to clear his throat. "Ethan, the board has come together in unanimous agreement to establish a new executive position, the Chief Information Security Officer. Complete executive authority with a reporting line that goes straight to the board. We are pleased to extend to you the opportunity for the role." I placed my folder on the table. "Within these walls, my conditions await," I declared, "absolutely non-negotiable." The CEO lifted the document, his eyes darting across the pages with swift precision. Her eyebrows arched in surprise. "Comprehensive audit authority spanning every department, self-sufficient budget, the authority to reject decisions regarding financial technology." I gave a single nod. "This is unusual," she remarked. So I replied, "Was embezzling $5.2 million. It unfolded in the shadows a moment unnoticed by all." At this moment a person will step forward. As the last echoes faded away, an enveloping silence settled over the room. "You have until noon," I declared, my stance firm. "There are other offers on the table." As I began to walk away, David called out to me, "Was this your plan from the very beginning, Ethan?" As I stood before the door, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. Never did I imagine that after 17 years I would find myself without a job. From that point onward, it was simply a continuation of my journey, recognizing the weaknesses within systems and putting in place the necessary safeguards to protect them. At 11:47 the call came in. They had acquiesced to every stipulation. Half a year had passed, and there I was, settled into my new corner office, poring over the security protocols set for the upcoming quarter. The vista stretched out before me, revealing the Columbus skyline, a constant testament to the transformations that had unfolded over time. Mark Wilcox found himself facing the consequences of his actions, having pled guilty to a series of fraud charges. In return for his cooperation, a lighter sentence awaited him. Remains noteworthy. Scott found himself in a battle against the charges, steadfastly claiming ignorance of the scheme, even in the face of compelling evidence. Brandon Phillips, having sought refuge in Brazil, now faced the impending process of extradition. The funds had been retrieved, much of it at least. The company managed to steer clear of significant financial harm. My former team now found themselves under my leadership, although I had entrusted Stephen with the responsibility of managing day-to-day operations. The child possessed a spark of promise. I simply required another pair of eyes to witness it. A sudden knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Emily lingered in that moment, a smile gracing her lips.
"Are you prepared for lunch?" she inquired. I nodded, reaching for my jacket. As we strolled through the IT department, the chatter hushed for a moment.
Not out of fear, but from a place of respect. The truth was clear to these individuals. They understood what had transpired. I realized I had the power to bring the company to its knees rather than rescue it. As we stood in the elevator, Emily's grip tightened around my hand. Content, I pondered the question. The fury that propelled me in those initial days following my dismissal had diminished. What lingered was not quite happiness. It resembles a sense of fulfillment, completion. "I'm good," I replied. The October sun cast a gentle warmth upon our faces as we strolled towards a nearby restaurant. A message from David Chen made my phone buzz. "The board has granted approval for the increase in your security budget." A decision reached by all in agreement. A faint smile graced my lips. "There shall be no arguments, nor shall there be questions. Simply have faith." Emily caught sight of my expression. What could it be? Nothing, I replied, slipping the phone back into my pocket, contemplating the essence of bridges. Some crumble beneath the burden of their own mass. Some once mended emerge more resilient than they ever were before. This time I had constructed it perfectly.